Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
This episode is brought to you by Hostfully, a company that helps you make beautiful guidebooks for your listing. Especially for Get Paid for Your Pad listeners, get 2 free months of their premium version. For more details, visit hostfully.com/pad.
Welcome everybody, episode 181 of Get Paid for Your Pad. I am with Jerry Mays today, and he is the co-founder of GuestBook, as well as a remote superhost, should I say, in Miami. He resides in Boston. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jasper. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Absolutely. Jeremy has been helping me out with the Airbnb news group, where he's posting a lot of articles about Airbnb and giving opinions and asking some questions, and he's having a lot of fun with it. It's been going pretty well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exciting, really. Getting into the industry and engaging these hosts that are in the Facebook group and talking to them, asking them questions, sometimes getting them fired up over controversial subjects, but no better way to get firsthand knowledge about the industry than by the people who are on the ground level actually operating into it.
So for the people who are part of the Airbnb news group, you might already know Jeremy, but for those who are not, could you give us a quick summary of your background and how you got started with Airbnb and how you got started with GuestBook?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. So back in, 2015, I made a decision to buy a condo down in Miami Beach, partially to, chase a girl who's now my wife, so I guess it worked. And, I knew obviously being in Boston that I wasn't going to be there more than, a handful amount of time during the year. So I didn't want it to sit empty. Obviously, it needed to pay for itself. And I think, like a lot of part-time or full-time hosts, I decided to buy the place specifically with the intentions of putting it on Airbnb. And so, I did a little research, figured out, the right place to buy, figured out the right combination of, decor. As a marketer, my background is as a marketer and as a creative. So, I have a pretty strong attention for, detail, visual appearances, important to me, clean lines, bright spaces, etc. And went down there, bought the place, connected with some people that I knew in the area who helped me source somebody who could clean my place, and figured out, what the right combination of, lockbox and smart lock on the front door was going to be so people could get in and out. And then obviously wanted to make sure that somebody was going to be around to handle any, emergency situations, because Boston's about 1,200 miles away. And obviously I couldn't show up in the middle of the night. So that was my sort of first jump into, Airbnb. And I think like everybody else, I didn't really realize what I was going to get into, and, the amount of work that it was going to take, or, the, attention of detail. But again, as a marketer, and somebody who, firmly believes in, treating other people the way I would want to be treated, I wanted to make sure that anybody staying with me felt welcome, felt, excited about showing up, felt excited about their stay, was happy, felt well taken care of, and, left with a smiling face because, let's be honest, I wanted good reviews. That was not the only motivating factor, but, certainly understand the business side of Airbnb and how it works. I wanted to make sure that was also, well executed.
Yeah, and you're a remote superhost, which is a great achievement because I always feel like it's a bit more challenging to reach the superhost status if you're not actually interacting with your guests in person. If you're not there personally to meet your guests, it's harder to build a relationship if you have to rely on emails and messages, etc. So that's great. And we talked a little bit before we started recording. You mentioned to me that you have some views on hospitality. It's something that you really focus on in your Airbnb hosting experience. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what this hospitality means to you, and what are the things that you've done to create like the outstanding experience for your Airbnb guests.
Yeah. So, hosting to me and hospitality is everything. I've been a traveler as well, and I've stayed at places where the communications was less than ideal. Where I walked into the place and kind of had to question whether or not the sheets had been washed. Where the host hadn't been quite as transparent about how noisy the place was going to be, or how many other people were going to be kind of around the general area. So I've been on that side of missed expectations, and it wasn't a great feeling. And so for me, I think it's really important to be at bare minimum over communicative with guests who are coming into your place. First, when I designed the place, or when I furnished the place, I just wanted a clean, functional, comfortable decor, something that wasn't overly themed, if you will. It was just specific to the area. It was whites and bright colors, and made people feel excited about being in the area and being in Miami. And as I got into hosting and, really started interacting with guests, I actually found it really simple. Reaching out to guests before their trip, making sure that they arrive, safely, checking in with them, while they're, on site or while they're, staying at your place, and, sending them off with a fond farewell. And I'm trying to think of, what else I do. It just seems so natural to me. I've got a washing machine. I've got an in-unit laundry, a dishwasher. So, I take on a little bit of an extra expense by providing, laundry pods and dishwasher pods and coffee pods if somebody wants coffee. I mean, nobody wants coffee more than someone who just got off, a multi-hour flight and jumped in a cab and arrived at your place in the middle of the night. And so those are the kinds of things that I've thought of, at least so far.
And you're hosting in Miami now. I know there's been some new regulations and some issues when it comes to Airbnb hosting in Miami recently. Did that affect your hosting at all, or?
Maybe I saw a dip in travel. There was one year where where Miami Beach got really aggressive in PR campaigns, warning travelers that they'd be kicked out in the middle of the night, or the police would harass them on the curbside if they suspected that they were staying in Airbnb. I'm lucky. I happen to host in a zone that's still approved by the city, and the city has been focusing primarily on single-family homeowners as a quality of life issue to the neighborhood. The rest of Miami, when it comes to condos and buildings and condo associations, some of it is sort of regulated privately by the condo association. So it's a building by building issue. And when originally searching for a place, because I knew I would put it on Airbnb, I specifically looked for a condo association that had no rules against, short-term rentals, and was actually primarily a investor-owned building. So 70% of the units in my building are owned by investors, where it's not so affecting the actual permanent residents of the building.
Now, I get a lot of questions from listeners who want to invest in an Airbnb, and Miami comes up quite a lot.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what exactly you looked at, in making that decision of which apartment to buy in Miami?
Yeah, sure. So I actually had a lot of criteria or variables that I asked my broker to fulfill. I wanted to be close to tourist attractions, close to the beach, in a relatively quiet neighborhood, which one would think doesn't exist in Miami, but it does. And I should also make a distinction that I'm in Miami Beach versus, Miami. They actually are two different cities from a, municipality perspective. And so, thinking about the people who would come in and stay at my place, I really just wanted to hit on all the different notes that it would appeal to, travelers and tourists. It's a transient town. Most of the people who live in Miami actually aren't from Miami, and even more, people who travel to Miami are really tourists. A lot of international tourists who want to experience the beach, who want to experience nightlife, who want to experience shopping. And I got quite lucky in my search. I happened to be dead smack in the middle of Miami Beach. It's only about 26 blocks to begin with, but you really couldn't get any closer to all the different attractions in Miami Beach than I am.
So that's in terms of the location. What about the actual unit?
Yeah, the unit itself is a one bedroom. It's in a quiet building. It's slightly set back from the street itself, and it's obviously clean. It's a corner unit which gets great light. I was actually looking at buying another unit on the same street before I bought this one, and last minute when that deal looked like it wasn't going to go through, my broker turned me on to this unit. It happened to be a motivated seller who just wanted to get out of the area and out of ownership, and so the stars really just aligned. Right place, right time, right opportunity, and I was in there, set it up in 10 days, and was back in Boston, and had it listed on Airbnb in about 2 weeks, from
awesome.
Closed to listed. Yeah,
awesome. That's good work, man. That's good work, man. And in the process, you also managed to meet your wife.
I had met my wife a couple months before, and so how I actually, this is actually important. How I even decided to buy the place was because I met this beautiful woman, and I was traveling down to Miami. I was staying in the South Beach hotels. The South Beach hotels were running $400, $500, $600 a night. So at some point that becomes economically and financially just too challenging to sustain over a long period of time. And there was just no way I was letting this woman out of my sights. And so a good friend of mine said, hey, why don't you, look around for a place on Airbnb? And I had, like a lot of people, I think, a certain level of expectation or certain habits when it came to travel. I had been used to staying in, luxury hotels. I had a certain level of, desires when it came to my travel accommodations. And so when the first person, my friend, suggested that I stay in Airbnb, my immediate reaction was, actually to push back and say, I don't think I want to stay in somebody's like spare bedroom. I don't think I want to deal with, having, some creepy place. I don't know, who the host is going to be. I think a lot of common, apprehensions and fears that, people still have when it comes to maybe traveling on Airbnb, although it's a lot less these days. But, finally I was convinced and I booked a place, and it happened to be an entire condo. There was a pool on the roof of this building. The host was, more than friendly. He met me, checked me in, and 2 years later, almost 3 years later, we're still in touch. I've developed a little bit of a friendship with him. So when I go down to Miami now, oftentimes we get together. And so that was my first sort of, experience with Airbnb, going down, chasing after my wife. And then while I was there, I was just running the numbers and said, okay, if I keep this up, it really makes no sense for me to continue to pay all the money that I'm spending, even on Airbnb. I might as well just buy a place and, do the exact same thing. And that's only because, the host that I was staying with was very open and transparent about how much money he was making. So that was kind of the motivation.
So should we call this podcast How Airbnb Hosting Can Lead to Getting Married to the Woman of Your Dreams?
Yeah, sure. I think my wife would probably kill me for saying that, but deep down inside, she would like that.
All right, awesome.
You've heard me talk about Hostfully a lot over the past few months. I love sending my beautiful Hostfully guidebook to my guests, as it makes me look very professional. I also love including screenshots of my guidebook in my actual Airbnb listing. This helps me stand out from the crowd. Well, now I'm thrilled to announce that I'm a sponsor of the Hostfully Host program. Twice a month, Hostfully selects a host and features them on their top-ranked blog. This is great promotion for your listing and a cool way to share your favorite local spots to a large audience. What's even cooler is that each Hostfully host gets a free set of organic sheets from the clean bedroom. And now that I'm a sponsor, you'll also be featured in my newsletter, my social media feeds, and you get free access to my video course on how to be a great host. For more details and how to apply, visit hostly.com/hostlyhost.
Let's talk a little bit about GuestBook and what does GuestBook do? How can they help Airbnb hosts, and how did you come to start it?
Sure. So, I think a lot of startups or a lot of inventions or a lot of ideas, really was, born out of, necessity. Coming back to Boston, obviously, being into technology and being a marketer, stringing together email templates for my incoming travelers and, figuring out what the right blend of technology was for my own needs and operations and communicating with my, cleaning person, et cetera. I just sort of became frustrated to a certain degree and thought to myself, like all entrepreneurs, there's got to be a better way. And so, I looked around at, the offerings, that were out there, and there's a handful of them. And, some of them were good, but not great. Some of them, accomplished some of my needs, but not all. I didn't want to add 5 or 6 different apps or products or platforms just to cater to all of my needs. So for a while, I was just, really doing it on my own, setting calendar reminders for, myself to, email check-in information to my guests, making sure that I kept my cleaning person, as well informed as far in advance as possible to, ensure, reliability. So I never had to, worry about her not showing up. That was a big concern of mine because I didn't know any other cleaners in Miami. And so if there was ever an instance where, this person couldn't clean for me in between guests, I'd have a problem. And so, consistently being faced with challenges of, being a host, I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. And at the same time, I ran into a colleague, his name is Sanjay Patel. He's the CEO of GuestBook. He and I, started talking. He happens to be, an Airbnb host here in Boston. He owns 5 properties. And so we really started, getting together and, talking about some of our common challenges and, realized that they were the same. Remembering to send guests welcoming emails, remembering to send guests check-in instructions, keeping our cleaning professionals informed as to, when we needed our, places, cleaned and turned over, making sure that our guests have the great experiences that we want them to have. So they feel like they enjoyed their travel experience, and also so we get the good reviews, and so all of those things became, challenges that we were just passionate about solving. Sanjay is a technologist. I'm a marketer and a technologist. And, we started brainstorming, coming up with ideas, seeing if we could test them out in, our own properties, kind of proving out whether or not our theories were correct. And that's how GuestBook was, originally, born, if you will.
Awesome. And I know you guys launched recently.
Yeah.
So if I was an Airbnb host and I want to make use of your services, like what's the process and are there any fees?
Sure. So, right now it's free. I think that's the most important point. We are working on our pricing model, but there's no, imminent plans to implement it until we've, sorted out a couple of more details about the how, and the whens. Signing up is super easy. Just, log on to our website, use guestbook.com, click on sign up, and in about 15 seconds, you simply just connect your Airbnb account to your GuestBook account, create an individualized password for additional security. We'll do the rest. We actually will import all of your reservations and associated guest information into your account. You will then have options. We wanted to make sure that our service was modular, so that hosts could set up the right combination of services that were good for, their properties and, their guests. Right now we have, 2 features, soon to be 3. Feature number 1 is automation. It's just a little bit of automation to help you, communicate out welcome messages, to communicate out property information, to communicate out check-in instructions, and to communicate, check-out instructions. And so we call that, I guess in hospitality, it's considered a warm and sincere greeting, making sure that guests receive that information, a bunch of days before they travel. So they're, there's no question about whether or not they're expected at the property. They're not chasing down hosts for information. And it's just enough. We're not over relying on technology and automation. I think, there's still got to be a bit of a personalized, touch with your incoming guests. The second service that we have, which is one that I think is absolutely, crucial to anybody's hosting experience in their operations, is GuestBook Pro. And that's a product that, enables your cleaning professional to stay on top of all of your jobs. Every time a guest books on Airbnb or one of the other booking sites, we import those reservations into GuestBook. There's obviously a checkout time associated with those reservations. And then, that checkout time, day and time of checkout equals, day and time of cleaning job for your cleaning professional. And then there's another product or another service that we're playing around with right now. I think there's been a little bit of mixed emotions about it, but we want to experiment with it and see how people respond to it. And that's, a feature that allows hosts to activate and earn extra revenue by offering their guests early check-ins and late checkouts for a small fee. The reason why I say it's controversial is because I know a lot of hosts, myself included in the past, have just taken the position that if their place is open and they don't have anybody else coming in and somebody requests an extra, amount of time, then why not let the guest utilize the space? That's good hospitality. And I agree with that. But, at the same time, I think we need to remember that there are, resources being allocated to, accommodate those guests. We do allow for some windows in there to, remain free. This becomes a convenience for, the guest as well. And so if the guest doesn't want it, the guest doesn't need to choose to, purchase that extra time. But if the guest does want it, then what we are trying to do is eliminate those awkward conversations between guests and hosts where guests ask for it, hosts want to accommodate, hosts don't always feel great about accommodating because, to a certain degree, they are, charging, nightly rates or day rates, something that hotels certainly do all the time. And this kind of eliminates that, that challenge in the process. How often can you think of in your travels, Jasper, where you've maybe booked an Airbnb where, check-in was 4:00 in the afternoon, but it's an international flight. You land at 8:00 in the morning and your host hasn't accommodated an early check-in. And so you're left, walking around, a foreign city with your backpack and perhaps inclement weather, not really knowing what to do. And how long do you want to sit in, a coffee shop waiting to check in?
Yeah, I've been in that situation a lot of times in the last 7 years.
Yeah. And so, this is a situation where we think everybody can win. We're obviously trying to strike a balance where, guests don't feel, nickels and dimed. And, that actually leads me into our third product, which we're getting ready to release, which is called Traveler. And, we really look at Traveler as, a travel companion for all guests. It's connected to the host's Airbnb account. And so what happens is when, the booking happens on Airbnb and we import those reservations into, GuestBook, 5 days out from the trip or the guest's arrival time, they'll receive an invitation to, download Traveler, and they simply connect to, Traveler with, matching credentials that they used to book their Airbnb account. And that's how we ensure some security. And then they have access to, kind of a world of options, right? Early check-in, late checkout, property discovery, support during their trip if something goes wrong. It will connect them directly to, their host, and no more guessing. Do I text? Do I email? Do I call? Do I message them through the booking platform? It's all right there for the guests. We'll ladder into, things like neighborhood discovery and other amenities that we feel a lot of guests either would want to take advantage of, or things that I've already, experienced as, a host that have been requested by my guests.
Awesome. So it really sounds like it's a combination of a number of different services, which is cool, I think, because like you said, instead of using separate applications to help you with your Airbnb hosting. It would be cool to have just one application that does everything for you. One last question before I let you go. I was just curious,
Sure.
When you offer those that early check-in and late checkout service, like how does the payment, how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So, we're actually handling that for hosts. If they activate that inside of our dashboard, and I should, preface anything that I say that, we're beta testing it right now on a few accounts privately. It'll be ready, for everyone, sometime in the next couple of weeks. But we obviously want to make sure that we're, compliant and secure, and, guests and hosts alike need to, feel like their payments are protected, right? And so, the way it works is, hosts will activate that service inside of their account. In order to activate that, they actually need to have GuestBook Pro activated as well, because if there's a change in time, then the cleaning person needs to know about it, as well. But, they'll enter their, payout information. We, connect into, a third party and very trusted, payment solutions provider. And hosts can choose either their credit card or bank account as their payout method. And hosts, at that point will, sit back and, we run, algorithms on their schedule because we know who's coming and going. And if guests download the Traveler app, they'll be able to, which is free, obviously, for them, right from their, from their dashboard, they'll be able to see what's available for them. If there's early check-in available, it will present itself. And if there's late checkout available, that will also present itself. And then, we're just charging incrementally by hour right now, very small fee, just to really test out whether or not this is, something that will be widely adopted. Guests will pay through their end of the app. That payment will be transferred into, the host's, preferred payout method, minus a small commission that we're going to take, off the top, obviously, to facilitate the entire service. And so the best part about it is, no longer are you, sending a payment request on, on PayPal. You're not using some weird payment, the awkward conversation. Okay, well, how am I going to get you this $20? Just to, stay here a little longer has, gone away. And it's totally by choice. If guests want it, they can, pay for it. If they don't want it, they don't have to pay for it. And the reality is hosts can either waive it altogether or they don't have to activate that, that service. So it's still very modular, and we're putting the power in the choice of host's hands.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you very much for coming onto the show. And of course, we'll see you in the Airbnb News Facebook group. And
sure will.
I look forward to connecting with you again in the future and see how everything goes at GuestBook.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I really appreciate you hosting me, Jasper. Obviously come find me, everybody, in either, the Airbnb News group or at useguestbook.com. Looking forward to reconnecting and giving you guys updates and, the next few weeks or whenever I reconnect with Jasper here on this podcast for round 2.
Awesome. And for all the listeners, thank you for listening. And we'll see you on Friday with the next news episode. So see you then.
Get paid for your pet. 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 Get paid for your pet.